Fox News went live with what was supposed to be a routine panel discussion, but within seconds, the air crackled with tension. Kellyanne Conway leaned toward the camera, her voice sharp enough to cut through the studio chatter. "Jasmine Crockett is nothing but a headline chaser," she declared, her tone dripping with disdain. The other panelists froze, their practiced smiles faltering as they realized this was no ordinary exchange. Viewers at home watched as the feed shifted to a split screen showing Conway's pointed glare and Crockett's calm, measured expression. The host tried to smooth things over with a diplomatic laugh, but Conway pressed harder. "She lies. She manipulates. She'll twist anything for a soundbite," she continued, her words echoing across living rooms across America. Crockett didn't flinch. Instead, she raised an eyebrow and waited, letting the weight of Conway's accusations hang in the air. Social media timelines lit up instantly. Clips of the confrontation spread like wildfire before the commercial break even hit. When the camera cut back, the energy had changed. You could almost feel the audience leaning closer to their screens. This wasn't political theater anymore. It was a high-stakes clash between two formidable figures. Conway's allies on the panel shifted uncomfortably, sensing the line between commentary and personal attack had been crossed. And in that moment, Jasmine Crockett's silence became the loudest statement of all, setting the stage for a reply that would reverberate far beyond the Fox News studio. The showdown had not appeared out of nowhere. Fox News had convened the panel to dissect the latest tremors shaking the political landscape after Donald Trump's most recent rally and the growing questions about his inner circle's credibility. Kellyanne Conway, the seasoned Republican strategist and former senior counselor to Trump, was booked as the heavyweight voice to defend the conservative narrative. Known for her polished but cutting style, she had been on countless panels and never shied away from bare-knuckle verbal combat. On the other side sat Jasmine Crockett, a first-term Democratic congresswoman whose fearless approach had made her a rising star on Capitol Hill. Crockett had built a reputation for challenging established figures and dismantling carefully scripted talking points. Her supporters adored her candor and refusal to play by the unwritten rules of deference to political veterans. For Conway's allies, she was a thorn, too direct, too sharp, and too willing to expose hypocrisy. The host, a longtime Fox anchor accustomed to steering heated debates, opened the discussion with a straightforward prompt: the growing backlash against Trump's latest remarks and the fractures appearing within the Republican Party. The panel included two other conservative commentators and a centrist analyst meant to balance the ideological weight. But the moment Conway's voice rose and her finger metaphorically jabbed at Crockett, the dynamic shifted. The other panelists glanced nervously between the two women, knowing that Conway's provocations often led to fireworks, but perhaps not expecting just how quickly this exchange would ignite. Outside the studio, the stakes were higher than ever. Political watchers had been buzzing all week about rumors of internal GOP turmoil and Democratic efforts to seize the narrative ahead of midterm elections. Conway represented the old guard defending its stronghold, while Crockett embodied a new generation unwilling to bow to political royalty. This was not just a clash of personalities. It was a collision of eras, ideologies, and power structures being tested in real time. Even before the segment aired in full, snippets from the live stream began circulating online. Twitter hashtags with both women's names climbed rapidly. TikTok users clipped the first fiery exchange and layered it with dramatic music. Instagram accounts posted side-by-side images of Conway mid-attack and Crockett's unbothered stare. By the time the second segment rolled, millions were already watching with bated breath, waiting to see if Crockett would swing back or stay silent. The tension in the studio was palpable. As the cameras rolled on, Kellyanne Conway doubled down, her voice slicing through the polite chatter of the other guests. "Jasmine, you've made a career out of pretending to stand for the truth while peddling half-baked accusations. You're not here to debate, you're here to perform." Crockett's lips curved into the faintest trace of a smile. "Kellyanne, I don't need to perform. The facts perform all by themselves when you stop spinning them." The audience watching at home erupted online. Screenshots of her calm rebuttal flooded timelines within seconds. The host tried to intervene. "Let's keep this civil." But Conway interrupted. "Civil? Civil went out the window when Democrats decided character assassination was their campaign strategy. Crockett leaned forward, her voice steady but firm. Character assassination? You're defending a man who called an entire election rigged without evidence, who stood by while chaos unfolded in the Capitol. Don't lecture me on integrity. Her words struck a chord. The centrist analyst blinked, momentarily speechless. One of the conservative commentators muttered under his breath, unsure whether to defend Conway or stay quiet. Conway wasn't finished. She jabbed a finger toward the camera. You don't understand loyalty. You ride outrage because you've got nothing else to offer your voters. You exploit every misstep like it's a scandal of the century. Crockett's eyes flashed. Loyalty isn't about covering up wrongdoing. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. And if calling out lies and corruption makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourself why. The host attempted to redirect a policy, but the back and forth was unstoppable. Conway raised her voice. You're a rookie who doesn't know how Washington works. You throw grenades because you can't build anything. Crockett answered without hesitation. I'd rather throw a grenade of truth than build a wall of excuses. Washington works for insiders like you, until someone like me walks in and tells the public what's really going on. The studio's atmosphere grew hotter with each exchange. Viewers could sense the panel slipping from controlled debate into unfiltered confrontation. Clips of their words, grenade of truth, wall of excuses, were already being clipped and shared, each line becoming its own viral moment. The conservative commentators shifted uncomfortably, knowing they were witnessing a soundbite war that would dominate headlines by morning. The Fox News host looked directly at Conway, then Crockett. Ladies, let's get back to the original topic. But it was too late. The conflict had become the topic. Conway tried to seize control of the narrative again, her voice sharp and unwavering. This is exactly what's wrong with Washington. Grandstanding and self-promotion instead of solutions. Jasmine, you're out of your depth. The studio went quiet for a split second. Crockett inhaled slowly, then delivered the line that would detonate across every social feed within minutes. Out of my depth? Kellyanne, I'm not drowning. You're clinging to a sinking ship and everyone can see the water rising. Gasps rippled through the panel. One of the conservative commentators widened his eyes in disbelief. The host blinked, caught between awe and panic. Viewers flooded Twitter and TikTok, looping Crockett's words over dramatic music, captions reading, "Savage reply." Conway opened her mouth to respond but faltered. The weight of Crockett's metaphor, a perfect blend of wit and indictment, hung heavy in the studio. Even the centrist analyst, who had remained mostly neutral, couldn't suppress a smirk. The live chat on streaming platforms exploded with comments. She ended her, "This is historic. Fox didn't see that coming." The host attempted to steer the conversation back. Let's, move to the economic numbers. But Conway's pause had already given Crockett the upper hand. The viral clip began to dominate timelines even before the segment wrapped. By the time commercials rolled, media accounts were already posting headlines. Crockett's cutting comeback leaves Conway speechless on Fox. Outside the studio, news aggregators pushed notifications. Podcasters scrambled to set up late-night recordings to discuss the moment. Hashtags like #SinkingShip and #Crockett vs. Conway trended worldwide. What had begun as a routine debate was now a cultural flashpoint, a single phrase eclipsing hours of planned programming. In that instant, Crockett's reputation as a fearless truth-teller cemented itself even further. Conway, usually unflappable, had been visibly rattled, a rare sight that magnified the shock. The panelists exchanged uneasy glances as the cameras panned out, knowing the segment would be replayed endlessly in the days to come. As the segment wound down, the Fox News host attempted to wrap up with a neutral summary, but the atmosphere in the studio was already charged beyond repair. Kellyanne Conway straightened her notes and forced a smile, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her irritation. "Well," she said, "I think the viewers can decide who's clinging to what." It was a feeble attempt to regain ground, but everyone on set, and millions watching, knew the defining moment had already passed. Jasmine Crockett didn't press further. She simply looked into the camera with calm conviction and said, "The truth doesn't need defending. It just needs to be heard." That sentence, delivered without flourish or anger, landed with surprising force. The host muttered something about spirited debate and cut to a commercial, but the damage was done. Within minutes, major outlets had clips queued for replay. MSNBC labeled it Crockett's mic drop moment, while even non-political channels on YouTube began circulating the video under dramatic thumbnails. Social media platforms were ablaze. Supporters of Crockett hailed her as the voice of accountability, while Conway's allies scrambled to spin the exchange as a misrepresentation or unfair ambush. Memes flooded Instagram, one showing a cartoon ship sinking with Conway at the helm, another replaying Crockett's line with cinematic slow motion. Talk shows picked it up the next morning. Panelists debated whether Conway's attack had backfired and whether Crockett's rise signaled a shifting balance in political discourse. Commentators noted that Conway, usually adept at controlling the narrative, had underestimated Crockett's poise and precision. The incident became a case study in the power of live television and the speed of viral media. A single exchange could reshape reputations overnight. Crockett's team issued a short statement later that day. Representative Crockett stands by every word she said. Accountability matters, and the American people deserve honesty from their leaders. Conway's spokesperson fired back, Kellyanne refuses to be distracted by theatrics and will continue to fight for conservative values. Yet the public perception was already set. The viral clip had carved its place in the collective memory, and no press release could undo it. By evening, Fox News itself replayed the moment multiple times, each airing drawing new waves of online discussion. Analysts pointed out that this wasn't just about two personalities clashing, it was emblematic of a deeper shift. Younger, outspoken voices like Crockett's were no longer intimidated by political veterans. The old guard's familiar tactics, interruptions, dismissive quips, rehearsed outrage, no longer guaranteed victory in the era of instant clips and fact-checking audiences. In diners, offices, and living rooms across America, the conversation stretched far beyond the network's audience. People who rarely tuned into political panels were now quoting Crockett's sinking ship line at water coolers. College students remixed the clip with trending songs on TikTok. Late-night comedians turned it into a recurring gag. And through it all, a message lingered. The balance of power in political debate was shifting. The exchange had stripped away the usual scripts and talking points, leaving something raw and undeniable. It wasn't just about Conway and Crockett. It was about a new era where polished sound bites could be demolished by a single, unflinching truth, and where even the most experienced political operatives could find themselves stunned on live television. For many viewers, the moment felt like a turning point. It wasn't just entertainment, it was a reminder that accountability could still pierce the noise, that sharp wit and integrity could break through rehearsed spin. As the clip continued to trend for days, one sentiment appeared over and over again in comment sections and tweets. This is what democracy looks like, unfiltered, unpredictable, and unforgettable.